Chapter 46. A Letter from the Pines. The letter came on a morning so quiet it almost seemed staged, like the world was holding its breath, waiting for me to notice. The air smelled faintly of rain, though the sky was clear, and the soft hum of bees and the budding flowers around the porch made everything feel deceptively ordinary. Ethan was the one who found it first. He crouched near the steps, brushing his fingers against the weathered boards until he tugged it free. It wasn't sealed with wax, nor did it carry the mark of any postal hand. No stamp, no address, only my name, Ray Winslow, inked in a script so fine it seemed spun from thread, so fragile it might vanish if I stared at it too long. Ethan turned it over once, twice, then met my eyes with that quiet, steady look of his. He didn't need to say anything. We both knew what it was before I even touched it. My hands trembled slightly as I unfolded the single sheet. The paper smelled faintly of pine smoke and something older, something wild. My breath caught as I read the words, each one heavy with purpose, each one sinking into me like stones dropped into deep water. To the keeper of the red tree, it began, there is another place, another forest, and it is dying. The sentence echoed in my chest, its weight both terrifying and familiar. It wasn't just ink on a page, it was a voice, a plea. A thread connecting me to something vast and unseen. The letter wasn't signed, but at the bottom, almost invisible unless you tilted it to the light, was a mark I had prayed I'd never see again. A spiral of leaves. The sigil carved into the altar where everything had once changed, where the forest had tested me and almost broken me. I pressed the page to my chest, heart thundering. "It's happening again," I whispered. Ethan stepped closer, his hand brushing mine, grounding me. He didn't flinch at the words. He didn't even ask questions. His answer was immediate, woven with the same unshakable certainty he had carried through every storm we'd survived together. "Then we go," he said simply. I stared at him, at the quiet fire in his eyes, at the man who had once been taken from me and returned by a miracle I still didn't fully understand. And in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. The forest had chosen me once, reshaped me, and bound me to its secrets. And now, another was calling. The trees around us swayed with a sudden gust, though the air was still. It was as if they had heard his words, as if they were answering. And I knew, this was only the beginning. Chapter 47. Leaving Willow Ridge. The decision to leave didn't come suddenly. It pressed against me in quiet moments, the silence between the trees, the way the wind no longer carried sorrow, the way laughter now outnumbered whispers in the streets. Willow Ridge had healed, and in that healing, I realized my part here was nearly finished. Yet walking away felt like carving out a piece of myself. The town had grown roots in me, just as I had in it. Every corner held echoes of survival. The schoolyard where the children painted forests filled with light, the square where neighbors no longer flinched at the sound of rustling leaves, the quiet path where Ethan and I first faced the unknown together. This place wasn't just a home, it had been our crucible. Still, the letter weighed heavily in my pocket, its words etched into my chest. Another forest, another cry, another wound in the earth calling for someone to answer. And though I wanted to linger, I knew I couldn't ignore it, not anymore. Gran had once written about ghost groves, hidden places where roots tangled like veins beneath the world, where memory seeped into the soil until it became something more. She warned that some were sacred, some cursed, and some waiting to be chosen. The symbol at the bottom of the letter told me this was no accident. The forest itself had reached out. Ethan didn't argue. He didn't need to. His sketchbook was already packed, pages filled with drawings that now seemed like maps of the unseen. He had always known we weren't meant to stay still. His hand brushed mine, a silent reminder that wherever the road curved, I wouldn't walk it alone. We packed lightly, just what mattered. The binding stone, wrapped in cloth, pulsed faintly in my bag as though it sensed the journey ahead. My journals, filled with stories I couldn't let fade. A single pressed red leaf folded between pages to remind me where it began. Ethan carried his pencils and brushes, his weapons, his prayers. When morning came, the sky was soft with gold. The great tree in the heart of Willow Ridge, once a sapling, now towering and radiant, leaned subtly toward the road. Its branches swayed not with farewell but with trust, a benediction, a promise that it would remain, holding what we had built. I placed my palm against its bark. Warmth hummed beneath my skin, a rhythm like a heartbeat. Go, it seemed to say, but come back when the time is right. I whispered my promise into its branches, that I would, that this was not the end but another beginning. And then, with Ethan at my side, we stepped beyond the town's edge. Willow Ridge fell behind us like a story closing its final page. Ahead stretched only road, horizon, and the unspoken weight of what waited in the next forest, another echo, another test. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid. Chapter 48, The Town of Hollowshade. The road that carried us into Hollowshade narrowed until it felt like we were threading a needle between shadows. Pines pressed in on both sides, their boughs heavy with mist, their roots clawing toward the pavement like they were trying to hold us back. By the time the town appeared, small, gray, and swallowed by silence, it felt less like we had arrived and more like we had trespassed. The first thing I noticed was the stillness. No shopfront lights, no sound of dogs barking from porches. The windows of every house we passed were shuttered, as if the people who lived there had shut themselves in or had long since fled. The hedges out front were wild, creeping over stone fences and rusted mailboxes. Even the air seemed wrong, too thick, too damp, too watchful. Ethan drove slowly, his eyes scanning the streets like he was sketching the place in his mind. "It looks like the town fell asleep," he murmured, his voice barely more than a breath. I nodded, though the truth in my chest felt heavier. It looks like it doesn't want to wake up. We found the inn at the edge of the square. Its wooden sign swung crookedly from rusted chains, the paint long faded. The front door hung open just enough to creak when I pushed it with the palm of my hand. Inside, the air was thick with dust, but not with rot. It was like time had come to a halt here, stopped in mid-breath, mid-motion, mid-life. The furniture was neat, beds made, and lanterns set on shelves, but it was all draped in stillness, untouched for years. Ethan set his pack down and struck a match. The flame caught on a candle, and light spread across the room in hesitant circles. Shadows trembled against the walls like they were alive, like they wanted to speak. "This place feels," he began, eyes following the flickering glow. "Haunted," I finished for him, the word too natural, too certain. It wasn't just haunted by ghosts. It was haunted by memory, by the echo of something unfinished. That night, sleep didn't come easily. When it did, it carried me into a dream that felt less like a dream and more like a message. A girl stood at the edge of the pines, her hair tangled, her hands stained red, not with paint, not with berries, but with something darker. Her eyes were hollow, like all the light had been carved out of them. She didn't move closer. She just whispered into the mist, her voice sharp enough to cut through me. "He never came back." The words lingered long after I woke, echoing in the hollow chambers of my chest. Ethan slept soundly beside me, the candle burned down to a stub, but the dream clung to me like the damp air outside. And deep in my bones, I knew this wasn't just Hollowshade's silence, it was its story, and it was waiting for us to uncover it. Chapter 49, The Map of Roots. Hollowshade by daylight was no kinder than Hollowshade by dusk. The mist never lifted, not fully, and even under the pale morning sky, the town felt as if it were being smothered by its own silence. The air carried no birdsong, no echo of life beyond our footsteps. Still, we pressed on, driven by the thread of purpose that had pulled us here. At the far edge of town, the library waited, an angular stone building with tall windows clouded by dust. Its doors creaked open with a reluctant groan, yet the space inside felt strangely preserved. No vandalism, no broken glass, no graffiti, just shelves lined with books that seemed to wait patiently as though expecting us. Dust drifted in golden shafts of light, unbothered by time. Ethan ran his fingers along the spines of the books, then stopped before a stack of scrolls tied with brittle ribbon. We unfurled them carefully on the central table. They were maps, hand-drawn, each one filled with a strange artistry, as though the cartographer had cared less about accuracy and more about reverence. The maps depicted a tree. Not just any tree, but the tree, its canopy drawn with delicate teardrop-shaped leaves, its roots etched so intricately that they stretched beyond the parchment's borders. To our surprise, the roots were not contained. They sprawled across multiple scrolls, connecting to towns, forests, and valleys we did not know by name. Yet one line, faint but clear, ran back toward Willow Ridge. "This is the same forest," Ethan murmured, his voice hushed as though afraid to break the spell. He traced the roots with the tip of his finger, following their endless paths. "It's not separate places, it's fragments of one living whole, like the veins of something vast." The weight of it pressed into me. The idea that the forest I thought I knew was only a small corner of something that sprawled beneath the skin of the world itself. In a drawer beneath the library's reference desk, we found a journal bound in worn leather. The ink inside was faded but legible. It belonged to a woman named Leora. She had been a teacher, like me. As I turned the brittle pages, I felt her presence, as though she had walked these same halls with the same determination and the same fear. Her final entry was short, but it froze me where I stood. "The tree has chosen no one. The soil rejects us. We are not enough. If no keeper answers, it will consume what remains, even memory." The candlelight flickered across Ethan's face as he read the words over my shoulder. His jaw tightened, his eyes darkening with unspoken questions. Finally, he met my gaze. "You were the last chosen," he said quietly, almost accusingly, though I knew it wasn't aimed at me, it was at fate itself. My throat tightened. I thought I was the only one. The silence between us grew heavy, filled with the weight of the truth we had just uncovered. I wasn't the only one. I had never been the only one. And if Leora's words were true, the forest wasn't done testing us. Chapter 50. The Hollow Beneath Hollowshade. The wind that night was unlike anything I had ever heard. It didn't whisper like a passing breath or sing like the shifting of branches. It screamed. A long, endless howl that clawed its way through Hollowshade's empty streets and rattled the windows of the inn where we had taken shelter. Ethan and I looked at each other in the candlelight, both understanding without words. The forest was calling us. We stepped outside with lanterns in hand, their dim flames flickering against the mist that seemed thicker than before. The town lay silent behind us, its houses sagging beneath ivy and shadow. Ahead, the woods loomed darker, like a wall of secrets. Every crunch of gravel beneath our boots felt deafening. My pulse thrummed louder than the wind itself, urging me forward even as dread coiled low in my stomach. The map we had discovered guided our steps, its red circle etched deep into my memory. We followed its path through the skeletal trees until the earth itself opened before us. A hollow, vast, sunken, surrounded by trees stripped bare as if drained of life, waited like a wound in the forest. The lantern light trembled in my grip, barely stretching to the edges of the pit. Ethan's hand brushed mine, steadying me. "This is it," he said, voice low, reverent, but also wary. He studied the descent, the sharp drop that spiraled down into darkness. "The roots brought us here." We climbed carefully, each step sliding over damp stone and soil. The hollow breathed with the cold dampness of a crypt. The deeper we went, the louder the silence became, pressing against my ears, drowning out even my heartbeat. I could feel the forest holding its breath, waiting to see if we would dare enter its secret. At the bottom, the lanterns revealed a sight that froze me in place. Another altar stood before us, carved into the earth like its twin in Willow Ridge, but here it was shattered, broken as though struck by grief. Splinters of wood and stone jutted from the soil, and beneath them the roots twisted like veins, sick, gray, withering. They were not the vibrant lifelines I remembered. This was a corpse of a forest, choking on memory lost. And then I saw her. In the center of the altar, sitting in stillness so complete she might have been part of the earth itself, was a girl. Her hair was matted, her skin pale as bone, and her eyes, though wide open, did not move. They reflected the lantern light like glass, empty and endless. My breath caught because she wasn't a vision or a fading dream. She was real, alive, or something close to it. "She's been waiting," Ethan murmured, awe and sorrow tangled in his tone. His hand gripped my arm, not to hold me back, but to anchor himself to the moment. My heart raced, my body trembling as I stepped forward. Every part of me screamed to be cautious, but another part, something deeper, older, knew this girl mattered. She was bound to the hollow, tied to its silence. She was the missing piece in the story Hollowshade had buried. I knelt slowly, the moss damp beneath my knees. My lantern light brushed over her face, illuminating the faintest trace of freckles, the ghost of a child who had once laughed, who once belonged to a world that now refused to remember her. "What's your name?" I whispered, voice breaking under the weight of what I already feared. Her lips parted, the sound dragging through the air like stone against stone. It was fragile, broken, but it reached me. "Leora." I gasped. The name hit me like an echo returning from miles away. The journal, the library, the final words scrawled in ink, even memory. And here she was, the same girl who had written those lines, but trapped in the hollow where memory had abandoned her. Ethan's lantern shook slightly in his grip. "It's her," he said, staring at her as though seeing the impossible. "She's the one who tried to keep it alive. She never left." The silence of the hollow pressed closer, suffocating, aching. I could feel the weight of every forgotten voice, every fractured root, every plea that had gone unanswered. Leora was not just a girl. She was what remained when no one else remembered. The last ember of a story is almost extinguished. I reached out, my hand trembling as it hovered before hers. She didn't move, but her hollow eyes flicked faintly, as though searching for something she had long ago stopped believing in. My throat tightened, tears burning hot. "You don't have to wait alone anymore," I whispered. "We remember now." My fingers brushed hers, cold as stone yet real. In that instant, the hollow exhaled, the sickened roots quivering with a faint pulse of light. Not healed, not whole, but stirred. And in the depths of her empty gaze, for the briefest moment, I thought I saw a flicker of recognition. The forest was not gone yet, not while someone still remembered.